I went to college in South Carolina. I've lived all over the Southeast for most of my life. So I do consider myself a Southern girl in every way. And in the South, we have a little saying, and it goes something like, if mom ain't happy, nobody happy. Can you relate to that? I know my kids can. The mother is the heartbeat of the home, is she not? And a peaceful, tranquil home that hums along smoothly is really, it's based on mom a lot of times. Now, my husband is very much my partner in raising of the children. He can do everything I can do, and that gives me great comfort that if I get hit by a bus, he would just take over with, without any problem at all. But you know what? I'm still the heartbeat of the home. I just am. We just are. Mothers, they're the nesters, and you can feel that in a home. And that's why mom needs to be tranquil. Mom needs to be healthy. And when mom has got all her ducks in a row, it just kind of flows outward. It's like the ripple through the home, and everything seems to go smoothly. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to keep mama happy. But mama's not happy right now. I don't know if you've noticed it, but in the last generation or so, mothers are facing stresses and challenges that they've never faced before in history. The family unit has completely changed in the last generation, even since I was growing up. We have a quarter of children are being raised in homes by one biological parent. It's almost always the mother, 80% of the time. And single mothers are disproportionately poor, about 4 times as often as married households. And single mothers are more likely to receive government assistance. According to the U.S. Department of Education, approximately 40% of the children in the United States in grades 1 through 12 now live in homes without the biological father. This is a huge increase in only one generation. The home is becoming increasingly maternalistic in nature, meaning that mothers are running the show, either economically, socially, or both. And it's happening across all socioeconomic classes. Rich, poor, middle class, it doesn't seem to matter. This is across all levels of income. It's across all levels of education. And to give you an example, my husband's sister teaches at a classical school in Melbourne, Australia, and the sister school is in London, St. James School. It's a very prestigious school. It's an excellent school, and upper crust kids go there. It's a very upper crust school, and even in that school, 50% of the children are in a home with only one biological parent. Not necessarily single home, but the other parent that there is a step parent. The second reason mama isn't so happy these days is children are increasingly allergic and sickly. And this has accelerated even in the past 5 to 10 years. I've really noticed it, from my oldest, who is 14, to my youngest, who just turned 8 last week. I've just noticed it just in those few years. And I'm sure you can tell stories about it yourselves from your own communities. This current generation of children could aptly be called Generation A, where A stands for allergies. Well, children today are so allergic. When I was in school, there might have been 1 or 2 children in the entire elementary school who maybe had a peanut allergy or something like that. This is in the entire elementary school. And now it's just mushroomed. When my 14-year-old son was in first grade, there was 1 or at most 2 children in his class that were allergic. But when my daughter entered kindergarten, out of 12 children in her class, 10 were allergic to at least one thing. It was just my daughter and 1 other child who had no allergies. In this particular school district, here we are in Detroit, let's talk about Detroit for a moment. 40% of children in the Detroit public school system carry an inhaler to school. 1 in 88 children today are autistic. In Utah, the rate is 1 in every 47 children, and in New Jersey, which holds the dubious honor of the highest autism rate in the country, 1 in every 36 children is autistic. And you can see here the new childhood in America. 1 in 12 has food allergies. I think it's much, much higher than that, just in my experience. 1 in 20 has seizures. It's just, it goes on and on. We've got ADHD with its subsets of mental issues, depression, anxiety, conduct disorder, oppositional, defiant disorder. That's not on there, ODD, that I can see. But what it boils down to is 50% of children today are either overweight or have chronic illness. That's 1 in 2. It's almost hard to believe. I sat on the plane yesterday. I sat next to a psychotherapist from Tampa. I was actually flying in from Roanoke, Virginia, but she happened to be on my plane. She was from Tampa. Lives very close to me, as a matter of fact. But we got to chatting, and she counsels children a lot. She's a psychotherapist for children in Tampa. I started telling her some of these statistics. She couldn't believe it. She said, "Is that really true?" I said, "Look it up. U.S. Department of Education." So what I'm seeing, at least in my community, and I don't think my community is an exception, we've got a generation of mothers who are incredibly overwhelmed with financial responsibility, doing everything. The family unit is completely in their care in a lot of cases without a biological father. And they're burdened with the extent of their children's autoimmunity illness. Almost every family who has more than 1 children, there is a child with some sort of a challenge. Motherhood is hard enough when the children are healthy and you have a biological father there to help you. But when you add all of these socioeconomic and health issues on top of it all, the mothers that I talk to on a daily basis, they're overwhelmed to the point where they feel like they don't have any hope to make any changes. So have I depressed you enough? We'll be done with the bad news now. Let's talk about some good news. How can we change this? The good news is that even though mom has all these challenges and burdens, she's the one who can make the changes too. So there's a flip side to the problem. Mothers are overwhelmingly the initiators of change of diet in the home, and that's whether there's a stepfather there, if the biological father is there, whatever. Mothers are the heartbeat of the home. They are also the initiators of change in the home when something like a change in diet needs to be done. Now, that's not to say that I haven't seen fathers make amazing changes and be initiators in the home. I have. My husband actually was the initiator in our home. When we got married, I was, processed food, junk food junkie. That was because my mother didn't like to cook, and I never really had eaten much good food growing up. My husband, on the other hand, had been raised by natural foods, organic foods. His mother was an original organic food co-op leader in Uganda, of all places, when he was little, growing up, before he got to Australia. So we came from completely different homes with completely different types of mothers. So he was the one that when we got married said, "We're eating organic, we're eating clean." And I was kind of like, "What? I don't want to do this." And I was kind of, went along with it. But once the children came along, I got really motivated because we moms, we'll do things for our kids that we won't do for ourselves. And it's the same way with today, that mothers will initiate change, and most of the time it's because of the children. Mothers today will, I find that if there's a baby in the home, eczema is rampant in babies today. And this is even if the baby is exclusively breastfed. And mothers will, there's something, I don't know if it's something about lactation hormones or whatever it is, but mothers just seem to be more open to change when they're breastfeeding or when they've just had a baby. And if the baby is having a health challenge, they are very open to making change. So if she's exclusively breastfeeding and the baby has eczema, it's pretty obvious to see that some change needs to be made to her diet because the food is coming from her. So making changes is very easy, either for her diet, if the baby's exclusively breastfed, And if the baby has issues and is not breastfed, she wants to make changes and go on to the raw milk formula in that case. But either way, I guess my point here is that when there's a baby in the home that's having a challenge, mothers are unusually open. It's a real door of opportunity to make changes in the home when there's a baby with an issue, because a mother wants to help her baby more than. It just seems like as the child gets older, they still are motivated, but not as motivated as when there's a baby. So what to do if there's not a baby in the home? You know, how do we help mothers where they have toddlers, children in school, and there maybe isn't a baby with an issue? Well, the best way, obviously, to help these mothers is to get them onto a nutrient-dense diet, because when you feel better, everything seems easier, everything seems possible, problems seem to be solvable, things don't seem so hopeless anymore. So the best way is to get them onto nutrient-dense diet, but if there's not a baby with an issue, it's more of a challenge in my experience. And the reason for that is so many mothers work today. Mothers with babies might be home. I think maybe this is part of the reason why they're so open when they have a baby. They're home a lot of times, even for just 3 or 6 months. And because they just have the focus of the home, they don't have work tugging at their responsibilities and stressing them out. They have maybe the time and the focus to make changes. That may be part of it. But once the children get into school and they're back to work, which most mothers work today, it's just more difficult because they're so challenged. They're so stressed out because of work. The stale economy in the last few years has added even more mothers of young children to the working ranks. Particularly where I live, the economy is not good. And I've seen women that were home for years and years that have suddenly had to go back to work in the last couple of years. And these mothers, a lot of times, if they were starting to get on track or they were interested in making dietary changes, when they go back to work, that just all goes out the window because they just don't seem to have the mental bandwidth to make changes anymore. Even if they want to make changes and they're open, they can't because they just feel so trapped and stressed. So for me, as a chapter leader, as a blogger, as someone who, I consider myself, the first line, I'm the one who hits the beach to try to help them make the changes first. It's all about simplicity. Mothers are just too busy 24/7. It's almost like we have a generation of mothers with ADD. Not clinical ADD, but they just have so much going on that it's hard for them to focus on any one thing for more than just a few minutes. And I feel that way. I understand that. Sometimes I feel that way, even if I try to keep my life very simple. It's very difficult. Life just is so fast and crazy these days. It's very, very hard for mothers. So when I help mothers make changes to nutrient-dense diet, I realize that it has to be simple or most likely nothing's going to happen. Again, even if they want to make changes, even if they get what you're saying, and they really do have motivation, they don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to do it. So it has to be simple, or there just won't be any results. So what progression of steps is the best toward nutrient-dense diet? In my experience, it has to be something tangible. It has to be results that they feel in the morning when they're getting out of bed, within the first few minutes of their feet hitting the floor. Those are the results that you want them to experience. You don't want them, it's not an intellectual thing where, I'm eating organic, where they get bragging rights with their friends, or it's not, it's even not so much budgetary. I know women talk about, well, I need this to be practical, I need it to be within my budget. But if they feel the difference every day and how they feel when they get up in the morning, how they have more energy throughout the day, then the budget issues seem to work themselves out. They seem to find ways where they need to cut this, or we can let this particular expense go to put more into the food budget. Those types of things work out if you can get the physical results quick enough with the family, particularly the mother. And unfortunately, what mothers who are open to making dietary changes in the home want to do most is they want to join a fruits and vegetables organic co-op. That's like the number one thing they want to do. And the second thing they want to do is make their own bread. Those are the two things that they usually want to do first. And I'm not against that. I think that's wonderful. I use organic produce in my own home. And I make a lot of my own baked goods. But those, unfortunately, are not the steps that are going to produce the results quickly. And if a mother goes off and starts to make changes, even in a traditional diet sort of way, they start to get clean meats and organic fruits and vegetables, if they don't feel the results quickly, any sort of a stress or a curveball that life throws at them will get them off track, and they're done. They'll say, well, I tried that. I tried the traditional diet thing. It didn't work for me. I've heard that so many times I've lost count. So when I'm encouraging a mother to make changes, I focus on different things. And I try to very gently encourage them away from that. Not because it's not important, but because it's going to take their limited time and their limited resources away from the more important things, the more important aspects of traditional diet. And the most important aspect is the fat. Fat is job one. And if you want someone to feel results every day and how they feel, it's all about the fats. And they have to get the fats and they have to nail them really early. They can't do it kind of half-hearted. It has to be, fix it within a couple of days. And the great thing is you can do it really fast. You can fix the fats really quickly and they'll feel better almost overnight. And then they're bought in. And then once you've laid that foundation, it's almost like a line in the sand with the fat. If they feel that, they'll never regress beyond that line. Whereas if they start fruits and vegetables and making their own bread, then if something happens, their husband loses their job or their child gets sick or something happens that distracts them, they'll drop those things because they didn't really feel much better making those changes anyway, not initially. But with the fats, they feel better so quickly that no matter what happens, that will stick. That change will stick forever. Let me give you a couple of personal examples, and this is why I've always focused on the fat. It was because of my personal experience. Again, I mentioned when my husband and I got married, we decided we were going to eat organic and clean meats. And we did this the first 10 years of our marriage. And even though I guess I felt okay, I'm sure what we were doing was good. I'm not saying that it wasn't. It was good for sure. It was a low toxin way to eat. We weren't introducing a lot of toxins into our body. So from that aspect, it was very good. But was it nourishing us? Not really, because I was still sick a lot. I still had trouble getting well when I got the flu. I didn't feel so good when I got up in the morning. I wasn't very energetic. I needed a sugar pick-me-up in the afternoon at work. And I always attributed that to maybe low willpower, that I needed the sugar. And that really wasn't it at all, because once... Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm using my Wi-Fi on my phone here. When we switched to the fats, when I listened to Sally Fallon Morell's tape on why butter is better, it changed my life. And within... I'm sorry. I don't know why this is happening. I turned it off. But anyway, let me turn that down. I've got the ringer off too. Isn't that crazy? But when I listened to that tape, I made the changes within an hour. And I went home, I threw out the margarine, I threw everything out, and I felt better the next day. So it was such a fast change, such a rapid change, that I realized that any time a woman needed to make a change and make steps towards traditional diet, that's what she had to do first. Because anything else was going to be disappointing for her, not produce the results that she wanted, and she could fall off the wagon very easily if anything came along to distract her. So focusing on the fat is really key. And step one that I always encourage mothers to do is to do butter. Butter is the first thing. It's very easy. You can do it in 5 minutes in your home. Make that change. And it's not so hard to encourage people to do butter anymore. 10 years ago it really was. It was like pulling teeth to get people to accept butter in their home. And it's really not anymore. There's cardiologists, there's more and more doctors coming out that say saturated fats and butter in the diet is very good for you. The mainstream media, the Wall Street Journal just came out with an article last week suggesting that butter is healthy. There was a recent article, like I said last week, that said, let them eat fat. And let me read you just a couple lines from that article. Fear of fat has become a national sickness, an all-American eating disorder. Call it fat anorexia. In fact, some new developments have undermined anti-fat absolutism. Consider the recent New England Journal of Medicine report that included this fairly sensational revelation. After 5 years of watching trends in heart disease and strokes among people at high risk, the researchers could not in good conscience continue to recommend a low-fat diet to anyone. Did you hear that? To anyone. They couldn't recommend a low-fat diet for any situation, for anyone. And I'll tell you a quick little story. I was staying with my brother the last few days while I was visiting my parents, and my brother is a doctor. And lots of processed foods in the home. It's hard to find decent food in their home. But you know what? They have butter in the refrigerator. And I found butter in the refrigerator yesterday, and I was so excited that they finally made that change. And I haven't really talked to them too much about it, but they're on a very slow path toward traditional foods. But the first step has been made, even at my brother's home, as of, I don't know when they made the change, but it's there now. The beauty and simplicity of butter. You tell the mothers when you're transitioning, it's the first step that you want them to take. Get the best butter they can afford, the most yellow butter that they can get. The more yellow, the better. Use as much butter as you like, as often as you can. They love to hear that because it will help control their sugar cravings, and that will elevate their energy. Stable blood sugar. They're going to feel so much better in the morning when they get up. And there's no such thing as too much butter. And there we have a picture of Julia Child. If you're afraid of using butter, use cream. And look at her. She's probably in her 60s there. Look at her smiling, happy. Julia was always in a good mood, wasn't she? She was always pleasant. Never got stressed, even when she dropped that turkey. Did you ever see that episode where she's carrying the turkey and drops it? Picks it right up, keeps right on going. And she says, and we're almost always alone in the kitchen, aren't we, ladies? Don't you love that? You have to love her for just her great attitude. And I'm sure that her wonderful disposition was a lot to do with what she ate. So the very first step is butter. And then the next thing I encourage moms to do is to get on cod liver oil. Nowhere is it more important to draw on the past than understanding the value of fish liver oils. And we're starting to get back to that. The wisdom of that is starting to come back. But doing some digging around, the earliest reference that I was able to find about the use of fish innards for healing was in the book of Tobit, in one of the books of the Old Testament Apocrypha. The virtuous young Tobias is assisted by the archangel Raphael in bringing happiness and relief from suffering to Tobit, his blind father. Tobit's sight is restored using medicines from the entrails of fish and the heart, the gall, and the liver. And this is in the book of Tobit, chapter 6. And let me take a quotation from there. Then the angel said to him, take out the entrails of the fish and lay up his heart and his gall and his liver for thee. For these are necessary for useful medicines. That was the earliest reference I could find to using fish liver oils as medicine. Many cultures across the globe and across the ages have used fish liver oils for medicines. And Dr. Price documented a set of such cultures, the South Sea Islanders, in his nutritional classic, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Dr. Price noted that the bone structure of the South Sea Islanders was the most perfect of any of the 14 isolated cultures that he studied during his travels around the world in the early 1900s. That's a picture of Tobias healing his father. And getting onto the South Sea Islanders, they knew from generations of observations that their clean diet was not enough to ensure fertility, continued fertility, health of their babies, vitality well into old age, and resistance to chronic and degenerative disease. And what they did is they hunted sharks. I mean, you think about the South Sea Islanders. Think about it for just a minute. They had pristine water and air, right? They certainly had all organic food. There was no pesticides being used there. And they had plentiful food. They lived on the sea there. They could get plenty of seafood, fruits, whatever was growing there naturally, whatever they may have, grown themselves. It was certainly pure. It was certainly wonderful, healthy food. It was a whole foods diet. Isn't that what people strive for today? I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to have a whole foods diet. And then they find that it really doesn't work for them. It doesn't produce the results that they anticipate. Maybe they feel better. Certainly they're going to feel better. Maybe they have some better resistance to illness. But they don't have this amazing vitality and resistance to degenerative disease that these cultures that Dr. Price studied did. And these South Sea Islanders knew that by observation. They hunted sharks. They risked their lives to hunt these sharks. They would take the livers of the sharks that they caught and put the liver in the stomach and hang it on a tree, as you see in this picture. And there it would stay for, well, according to Dave Wetzel, it takes many months to ferment these cod liver oils that he makes his wonderful oil from. 6 to 8 months is what I've been told. It takes for the fermentation to naturally render the oil from the liver. And probably it was a similar amount of time for the South Sea Islanders. And they would give this oil to the pregnant mothers, to the growing children. And this oil, what it had in high amounts that their wonderful whole foods diet did not have, is vitamins A, vitamins D, and vitamins K2, known as the X factor, that Dr. Price wrote about in his book. And when you have these fat-soluble activators in these proportions, they supercharge the mineral absorption from all the wonderful whole foods they were already eating. It makes everything in the diet that they were eating even that much more nutritious, if you can understand it from that perspective. So that's why cod liver oil is so important to mothers when they're making simple changes. They're going to stick. They're going to stay with them. That's the goal. You don't want just something they're going to do for a month or two. I've seen so many people make changes and then just a few months fall away if they don't get the results they need. But with the butter and as step one, with the cod liver oil as step two, they are going to see results. I actually have never seen anyone not have results from at least those two steps. And again, it's introducing these fat-soluble activators into their diet, into the amounts that is really going to make a difference to their health. And that's what really provides the foundation of health for traditional cultures as well. Unfortunately, beginning about 1850, the very slow process of fermenting fish liver into fish liver oil gave way to using high heat. And this was a gradual process starting in 1850. And then about 1940, about 90 years later, almost all the cod liver oil by that point was rendered in modern fashion. Unfortunately, the high heat processing, it only took a matter of hours to render the oil from the fish liver oils, as opposed to weeks, if not months, doing the fermentation approach. It destroys the vitamin A, destroys the vitamin D, and it just destroys the oil. And you can see here we've got cod liver oil capsules here. That's what the cod liver oil that you get from most sources looks like. It's a clear oil. Unfortunately, it has been rendered with heat, and that does destroy a lot of the nutritional cofactors. There are some companies out there that add back in a natural A and D after it's been destroyed by the heat processing, but they're not typically in the right proportions. A and D need to be synergistically optimal for health. They need to be in the right proportions, and they do not add them back in the right proportions mostly. They're certainly not in the proportions of a fermented cod liver oil. Also, plain fish liver oil is also industrially processed. I have a lot of mothers who say, well, you know, the fish oil, it's so much more, it's cheaper, it's easier, it's not as it's much more cost effective to buy. Can I just use the fish liver oil? And I discourage that because, again, all the fish liver oils on the market, they don't contain the vitamin A, D, and the fermented cod liver oil contains some K2 as well because it's fermented. The fish liver oils do not contain those, and also the high heat processing really destroys the oil as well. So that's not really an option. But what about plant-based omega-3 oils? I get this from mothers as well. Well, instead of cod liver oil, can I take flax oil? Can I take walnut oil? And, you know, put it on my salads, use it for my salad dressings. And while those oils are fine, they're certainly fine, they're not, again, going to be a substitute for cod liver oil. The plant-based omega-3 oils do not contain the fat-soluble activators. No plant foods do. So you must get these from an animal source, such as cod liver oil. And the omega-3 fats in plant sources are in the form of alpha-linoleic acid, ALA. And the problem with that is that the body needs to convert that into the usable form of omega-3 fats called EPA and DHA. And if there's any sort of a digestive problem going on, any sort of compromise in digestion, this conversion very likely does not occur at a level to sustain the health, at a level that the body needs. And who doesn't have a digestive disorder today? Seems like everybody does. It's completely common. Anyone I think probably if you went out on the street and stopped 100 people, every single person would have some sort of a digestive complaint. So let's get back to cod liver oil again. There's nothing quite like it. And our society, to its peril, has been ignoring its benefits for far too long. All the healthy cultures studied by Dr. Price consumed the wonderful fat-soluble activators contained in cod liver oil at a rate 10 times higher than Americans living in the 1920s and the 1930s. So you can imagine it's probably even higher even today, since Americans' diets has gone even farther away from whole foods than back in the early 1900s. These fat-soluble vitamins supercharge mineral absorption, and they work synergistically to maintain high immune function. And a mother that you get the family on cod liver oil, and they go through a flu season, and they actually don't need a single round of antibiotics to stay well, they will never go off that cod liver oil. I guarantee it. They'll be on that for life. So helping to incorporate this traditional supplement into the family's routine every day is certainly a transformative step for mother's health and for her entire family. The final step is coconut oil. And I do these in order of importance. Certainly butter is the most important change first, followed by cod liver oil and coconut oil. If you can get all three of these steps, which you usually can. In my experience, you can usually make all three of these changes in the home within a matter of a day or two. And let's talk about coconut oil for just a minute. This is a very easy and cost-effective change for mothers. So she's got the butter to put on her oatmeal in the morning. She's got the butter instead of the margarine to put on toast. She's got the cod liver oil as a whole food supplement to take in the morning before her children go off to school, when she gets up in the morning after she eats her breakfast. And then she's got the coconut oil to cook with. And what is the coconut oil going to add? Well, there's two types of coconut oil, primary types. There's virgin and expeller pressed. The virgin coconut oil retains the coconut flavor, which makes it really unsuitable for cooking unless someone really enjoys the coconut flavor. I find most people do not. They don't enjoy that. So it's really not suitable for cooking, but it's wonderful therapeutically. So you can either take it off the spoon, you can put it in a cup of herbal tea in the morning to maybe suppress appetite before meals. That really works wonderfully well. But for cooking, I usually encourage the mothers to get expeller pressed coconut oil. It has no smell and it has no flavor. And it's also incredibly stable, so she can buy it in large quantities. I actually buy it in 5-gallon drums, and I keep it in my garage in Florida with a tight-fitting lid, and it's fine even through the hot summers, the humid summers. It's very, very stable cooking fat. And she can use this coconut oil for cooking. She can use it for her cookies. She can use it for making pancakes and waffles for her children, and it will give them energy. You can see this lady here. She's obviously got a lot of energy, and that's what coconut oil will add to the diet. It adds the medium-chain triglycerides to the diet in significant quantities. These are utilized by the body for immediate energy, since they do not need to be broken down in digestion like the long-chain fats do. They don't get stored as excess fat as well, so they aren't going to encourage weight gain. They're actually, in fact, going to encourage weight loss in most cases, and they're going to give a lot of energy. One of the MCTs in particular, called lauric acid, is a very important saturated fat, and it's found in abundance in coconut oil. It's also produced by the human mammary gland, so that's one of the reasons breastfeeding is such a wonderful thing to do for your child, is that the baby gets lauric acid. And lauric acid is antiviral, it's antibacterial, it's anti-pathogenic, antimicrobial, and that's one reason why breastfed babies are so resistant to getting sick, and they're so healthy. But the mammary gland makes it for the baby, but it doesn't make it for us, so we have to get it in our diet. And when mothers incorporate coconut oil, expeller-pressed coconut oil as their cooking fat, they're going to experience more energy, and they're going to have, obviously, more resistance to pathogens in the diet that they may experience in the environment. Their kids are not going to get as sick when they go to school. Of course, that's also because of the cod liver oil, but when you combine the coconut oil with it, they're going to be amazed how resistant their children are to all the bugs that are going around at school. Supermodel Miranda Kerr recently declared that she will not go a day without cooking oil. She is a supermodel. She's also married to actor Orlando Bloom. I don't know if you've seen her, but she's a lovely young lady from Australia. She's been using coconut oil since she was a teenager. She uses 4 tablespoons a day. And when she came out in the media and said this, she was condemned by the World Health Organization. A lot of places condemned her behavior as risky, irresponsible. They said her words were irresponsible, but they just don't know what they're talking about, because the traditional societies that consumed a lot of coconut fat in their diet had virtually no heart disease at all. So if your doctor buys into the fiction that coconut oil is somehow going to be bad for your health or give you heart disease, just find a new doctor, because it's just not true. The truth is that coconut oil is now receiving attention for its medicinal properties. Dr. Bruce Fife, author of Stop Alzheimer's Now and many other books on healthy oils and fats, recommends virgin coconut oil instead of drugs for Alzheimer's, such as Axona. The drugs like Axona become ineffective over time. They wear off quickly. They have side effects, and they cause free radical damage to the cells. When the natural MCTs and virgin coconut oil are converted into ketones, this is actually a super fuel for the brain. And again, mothers who have children regularly consuming coconut oil will find that these children are going to start doing better in school too. They're going to have better focus. It's also easier to get them out of bed in the morning for school. These MCTs, these ketones, this ketone fuel for the brain from coconut oil stimulates healing and repair. It penetrates the blood-brain barrier where ordinary food and oils cannot. There's actually a neonatal pediatrician who lives not far from me in Florida, Dr. Mary Newport, and she learned through research that the active ingredients in Axona are actually MCT pharmaceutical isolates, which are used not only for Alzheimer's, but also to treat epilepsy and part of neonatal feeding programs. And she was a neonatal pediatrician. And her husband was degenerating into severe Alzheimer's rather rapidly. I don't know if you've heard this story. He had progressive dementia for 5 years, and he had become borderline severe in that period of time. And so what she did is she started to mix up a mixture of 2 tablespoons of virgin coconut oil and the MCT pharmaceutical isolate that drugs like Axona are actually made with. She gave that to him with every single meal. My husband and I actually conversed with her via email and asked her if there was a particular reason that she preferred the virgin coconut oil to the expeller pressed. And if you remember, I mentioned that the virgin coconut oil was actually better for therapeutic uses, not so much for cooking, but for therapeutic uses. And she said that the MCT level in the expeller pressed and the virgin coconut oil is about the same. So for the ketone effect is about the same between the two. But because the virgin coconut oil is less processed, there may be some nutritional cofactors there that enhance the ketone effect of the MCTs in the virgin coconut oil. So that's why she chose it. She doesn't have any research on that yet at the current time, but her recommendation is that for Alzheimer's use, that virgin coconut oil be used. Within 37 days, now remember, he'd been degenerating into Alzheimer's for 5 years now. He was borderline severe, her husband Steve. Within 37 days, his neurological decline had halted, and within a year and a half, he had recovered enough brain function and normal behavior to test as only a mild case of Alzheimer's. Isn't that amazing? What an amazing story. Dr. Newport now travels the country talking about virgin coconut oil and the power of MCT fats to protect the brain from the ravages of Alzheimer's. So if you know of anyone in your family who has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and other types of neurological illnesses, talk to them about coconut oil and use Dr. Mary Newport's story. She's a conventional MD talking about the wonders of coconut oil. And mothers who get their families on coconut oil will experience children who learn better, children who are more focused, calmer household, kids who are easier to get out of bed in the morning, and it's going to enhance all aspects of domestic life. So there we have it, Nutrient-Dense Diet 101. The 3 steps are butter, cod liver oil, and coconut oil. We've got the butter that provides the saturated fats and some monounsaturated fats, some other special fats in butter that just enhance health. If you get the butter from grass-fed cows, you're also going to have the vitamins A and the D and possibly K2 in there as well. Then you've got your cod liver oil. Make sure you get your cod liver oil from a traditionally fermented kind that's not processed with any heat or chemicals of any kind, so all those delicate nutritional cofactors are preserved. And the cod liver oil will supply the vitamins A, the D, and the K2 if it's fermented. There will be some K2 in there. In the amounts that will supercharge the mineral absorption, enhance immunity, and also if you can get your moms on them when they're pregnant, you're going to have children with wonderfully straight teeth, a beautiful bone structure, and healthy children. And then we've got coconut oil for cooking, which will add the energy aspect and the clear focus, the antimicrobial benefits of coconut oil as well, which will help and synergize with the cod liver oil and the butter. So those are the 3 changes that I always get mothers on first. If I can't really get them to do this, then I know that my chances are slim of getting them on traditional diet ever. They really need to go for this first. And if they want to go off and do their organic co-op or whatever, that's fine, they can do that. But if they want my help, if they want me to coach them and I'm going to take my time away from my family to help them, I pretty much require this. And if they want to do something else, I'll say, that's great, you go do that, but when you're ready to do that, then I'll talk to you. Because that, to me, is the most important step, and I really want to make sure they're doing this. Because that's where I know that they're going to see the best results. But we can have a wrench in the works there, can't we? What if Dad's not on board? And that's a big problem, isn't there? This is the number one thing, the number one obstacle I see for mothers who sincerely want to make changes in their family's diet, is Dad putting the brakes on things. And sometimes it's the dad making the changes, and the mother puts the brakes on. But most of the time, it's the mom who really wants to do this for her children. And Dad is just not on board. Dad just wants that bag of chips. He wants that soda during the football game for whatever reason, and he is just not on board at all. He's into his fast food, and it's a tough situation. I've seen so many mothers derailed by this, and it's really heartbreaking. And that's another reason why I like to get them on the fats first, because these 3 steps that I just outlined for you, they're under the radar to Dad, for the most part. If you switch out, if you throw the country crock in the trash and you get butter in the refrigerator, is Dad going to notice? No. It looks yellow, right? They're both yellow. He's not going to notice. You know, if you're making him a grilled cheese sandwich in butter versus country crock, most of the time he's probably going to love it. But he's not going to complain. The cod liver oil that's in the pantry, that's when you give a spoon to your children on their way out the door before they go to school in the morning. Is he going to complain about that? No. It's not going to affect him, is it? If he wants to have a spoon, he can too. He can line up and have a spoon too. But Mom can take her cod liver oil, she can give it to her children, and if Dad is kicking and screaming about any changes to the diet in the home, again, it's not going to ruffle any feathers. And again, the coconut oil. Dad's not going to care if she's been cooking with Crisco or if she's been cooking with some sort of a vegetable oil before, and she suddenly switches to expeller pressed coconut oil to make the cookies and for making the pancakes on Saturday morning. Is he going to care? Not really. It's not going to make any difference to him. So I love these 3 steps as well, because in the rare case, it's very rare for both spouses to come along to a traditional diet at the same time. It's very rare. It does happen occasionally, and it's wonderful when it does happen. But it's usually not the case. So by making these changes, these 3 changes first, the butter, the cod liver oil, and the coconut oil, it's under the radar until the other spouse can come along. And if there's coconut oil suddenly in the diet, the coconut oil is being used for cooking, the butter is being used for cooking, the spouse that isn't interested in making any changes is suddenly going to start feeling better too. They're not going to know why, but they're going to start feeling better. They're going to be in a better attitude. They're going to feel better. So when the mother is ready to make additional changes beyond these first few steps, she's more likely to succeed with a husband who's feeling better, is more happy, because he's got a few good fats in his diet now too. So that's what I do to make Mama happy in my chapter when I'm coaching mothers. Again, the fats are job number 1. They are the most important thing. I found that even in my chapter, mothers that just do that and everything else in the diet may be really not that great. Maybe they still eat fast food. Maybe they are still eating store bread, store eggs. Maybe they're still using store meats because of budget reasons, whatever. But they're able to incorporate these 3 changes. You know what? Their kids are okay. If you get the fats right, the kids are pretty much okay. Unless they've already got issues to begin with, and then more things need to be done. But I've been so over and over the years shown that these steps really, really do work, and that's the bottom line, is to get Mama happy so that she can help her children to be healthy, and healthy children is the number 1 blessing of motherhood, isn't it? So that's my talk for today. You have some questions? We'll open it up for plenty of time for questions, I guess. Okay. Yes. That would come, yes, if the mother, again, if the mother is open and she's got a supportive spouse and she wants to incorporate that as well, I do that. I usually teach that when I'm showing them how to make broth, because that's where you get a lot of fat, that comes to the top of the broth, and you can save that and that fat for cooking and sautéing. But a lot of times, that's kind of a distasteful step for most people if they're coming off conventional diet. They see that chicken fat, it kind of grosses them out. They don't really appreciate the beauty of that fat right away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, sure, that fat is wonderful. Is it as nutrient dense as butter? It really depends on what the chicken was eating, the source of it. Also, you have to remember that chicken fat is high in polyunsaturates. It's high in omega-6s. And while a chicken fat is a wonderful traditional fat, most Americans today are eating too many omega-6 fats. So, again, I don't encourage a lot of chicken fat because they're probably already eating way too many omega-6s already. So I really do try to get them to the butter and the coconut oil and the cod liver oil instead. Tallow is different. It's not as high in the polyunsaturated fats. It's higher in the monounsaturated fats. So tallow is wonderful, but again, that's a more detailed step. To get the tallow and rendering tallow, that's kind of a big deal. That's not really an initial step for people that I find. That's something that comes along later. And depending, if you're a crazy mom like me who made all the changes within weeks, then yeah, within a month. And I've met a few ladies like that over the years, but most of the time tallow is a year or two into the process. That's when it comes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And lard is wonderful. But lard is a little more of it's difficult. There's more of a mental block with lard. People just still have this, they associate lard with fat, being overweight, and they associate lard with heart disease, and there's just not as much, there's so much more conventional acceptance of butter today and coconut oil than there is lard. Not to say lard isn't wonderful, because it is. But it's just easier when you're starting out. And remember, you have such a small window of opportunity with people sometimes. You don't want to overwhelm them. You cannot overwhelming them is the kiss of death to their progress toward traditional diet. You have to make it so easy. You have to make it fun. You have to talk about how much better they're going to feel and how much better their children are going to do in school. And all these things do happen. But trying to overcome, their memories of lard and the negative things they heard about lard growing up, it's very difficult. But it's very easy now to get people onto butter and coconut oil and even cod liver oil. You encounter very little resistance. So if you can get them on those three things, they're going to feel so much better. And you have to get results before they'll do the more difficult things. They're never going to be making broth, in my experience, until they're actually experiencing the benefits of butter in the diet. Because it takes so much time. It takes effort. Making broth is not an easy thing. You have to source the good chickens. You have to learn how to make it. You have to simmer it for 24 hours. There's a technique that you have to learn. So let's go for the easy things first. Get them feeling better. And then the more difficult things will come later. Yes? Hi.
Hi. First of all, thank you. I love your approach, and I really appreciate that you narrowed it down to those three things, because I get that question so often from people who say, what's the one thing, or where would I start?
Right there.
And I'm always like, oh, is it? And they're like, is it going organic? And I'm like, no, the greens.
That's right.
There's so much that I've done that I'm
They want to do
stumped.
green smoothies.
Right.
Don't let them do green smoothies.
Right. Yeah, I don't even do that. Have fun with it. Maybe someday in my journey, but But so my curiosity comes from, I have an almost 6-year-old, so he's in kindergarten now, and we're lucky that we're now in a school that it's a Montessori, so that's part of the philosophy is, food and nutrition. But there's still that conventional aspect and, candy coming home for holidays and the occasional party and the bake sales and, all that good stuff. So I do my little subversive things, but I'm just wondering what kind of advice you would have. Okay, and then I have the dad aspect where my husband is pretty supportive. He will choke down the liver and act like he likes it so that my son will, oh, yeah. So he's more supportive than most, but pizza with football and like you were saying, it's still coming into the house. So how do you help to control those aspects without being the controlling mom that makes your kid rebel in the other direction? What advice do you give in those types going into the school years? Yeah,
that's a struggle, and I'm a controlling mom by nature. You probably didn't know that, right? But so I've had to kind of consciously decide that I'm in certain situations that I'm just going to let things ride, even though I probably could have made things better in certain situations, because I want my children to learn some things. And along the way, you have to teach them balance. It doesn't do any good to raise your kids in a traditional food bubble and then they leave the home and just go off the deep end with their food. My goal is for my children to stay healthy once they leave the home, not just while they're with me. So you have to keep that goal in mind in every situation. And it's difficult. And I found that at least my 14-year-old, he is a food Nazi. He will not drink soda. He is so tough now. But this has only happened in the last year. He fought me right up until he started puberty. And then once he started puberty and all his friends started puberty, he started to see the huge difference. And I kept saying to him, I said, just wait till puberty. Then it's really you're going to really see it. And he's really seeing it now. And so all these things that I've been teaching him over the years, he's starting to see it firsthand. So he's suddenly become more strict than I am, even about diet. And I'm pretty strict, but when I'm out at a party, I let him just eat. I have certain things that are absolute no's. They are never to drink diet soda. They are never to drink diet soda. And so they're never to drink coffee. I have certain things that we never do. But I have other things that I'm more lenient on. If they go to a birthday party, are they going to have, I hate this stuff, Capri Sun with a high fructose? I hate that stuff. And it's at every birthday party you go to. I tell them about it. Yeah, I let them maybe have one. I hate that stuff. I hate even telling you that I let them have it. I let them have a piece of birthday cake. But you know what it does? They come home and they get sick. Mm-hmm. I hate that. And I know it's going to happen every time. But I very gently point out to them, golly, why do you think your tummy's hurting? Mm-hmm. And they, it was that cake, wasn't it, Mom? And they realize it. And that's a memory that you're helping them form so that, you know what, they'll eventually not take it anymore. My 10-year-old doesn't drink them anymore. My 14-year-old doesn't. My 8-year-old still will. But I'm expecting her in the next year or two to have enough memories where she'll stop. So you're going to have to decide that for yourself. In our home, I've decided my home is pretty much our sanctuary. I don't let junk into my house. Even if my daughter had a sleepover with 4 of her friends a week or so ago. And I asked her what she wanted for dinner. What did she want me to make for dinner for the children? And she said, can you make chicken? And she told me all the things. And then I made a birthday cake for her. And the kids ate fine. Mm-hmm. You know, when you make healthy food, kids love it. I don't have any trouble with that. Just I made homemade chicken nuggets, healthy ones. I made green beans, and I made a brownie cake with white chocolate chips, and it was amazing. White chocolate chips. And the kids, of course, ate it and loved it. And I make that cake about twice a year for my family. And it's a treat, but you're going to have to decide that for yourself, where you're going to draw the line. Everybody's different. In my home, that's kind of our boundary. I don't bring junk into the home. But when we're outside the home, we're at a party, I do let them indulge in certain types of processed foods to help them learn the balance, to help them learn how lousy they feel when they eat it, so that when they leave my home, they already have those memories and they already are convicted to eat right. So I hope that helps.
I was actually going to add on to that comment because I, too, my oldest is 8 years old, and we've been teaching him probably for 6 years about food, and I do the same exact thing. I let him make his choices. So he's in a classroom full of 40 children, and they, how many birthday treats they have in a year of a school year. And he was getting a lot of treats, and he would say how he didn't feel well, and he actually now fakes a milk sensitivity.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that he can bring in his own special treat, so he doesn't have to eat the classroom treats. That was his idea. And he just turned 8 at the end of February, and he has now decided that he wants to start making his own lunches.
Yeah.
We pack our lunches without processed foods and all the packaging and everything, and and it just comes with time.
It does.
And it's amazing when it clicks, and you're like, ha ha ha, you made a difference, in my
years.
child. Yeah.
It takes years. So just know it's going to happen. It's going to happen. They will come along, and just keep helping them and guiding them as they go, and let them maybe venture from the path at strategic points to help them learn a lesson, and it'll happen. I pretty much guarantee it.
I have a question about the coconut oil. Is there a difference between the expeller pressed and cold pressed, or are they the same?
There's different qualities of expeller pressed, yes. So the cold pressed would be the better.
That's the better one?
Of the two, yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Is there a coconut oil brand that's more superior than others?
Well, you have to be careful. Costco is carrying coconut oil now. Yeah. It's all over the place. So be careful. I buy my coconut oil from Wilderness Family Naturals. I love it. I get a 5-gallon bucket. It's the best expeller that I've tried. Best quality one. And a 5-gallon bucket lasts my family about a year and a half. So it's just, it's such a cost-effective cooking oil for a family to use. And it has a nice high smoke point, too. So, yep, we done?
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yay.